On this episode of Content Sessions, we talk to Christophe Davidson about writing, directing, and being a comedian. Hey man.
Hey.
Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I was just saying, just ahead of this, I didn't want to fuck up the name in the intro because I've done it 3 times now. 3 times out of like 18. That's not good.
Christophe's harder than you'd think. People always want to say Christopher. It used to be harder because my last name was, when I was born, was Christophe Davidson.
Is that French?
Yeah, of games. But I changed it when I was around 6 to my mom's last name due to all the school classroom teachers just screwing it up constantly.
Yeah. Bullying or teachers fucking it up?
The whole thing. But mainly teachers, I think, screwing it up.
Yeah, with Moll. So Moll, but pronounced like a shopping mall.
Yeah.
And then when that Austin Powers movie came out, remember the guy with the big mole on his face?
Oh, and that was
lights out. Forever, ever.
Had to get a whole new group of friends.
Yeah, assholes. Anyway, thanks so much for coming by. We connected on Instagram a little while ago. We wanted to talk about comedy. I've got a bit of an addiction to comedy.
Oh,
so
same.
Good. Yeah. I bet. So give me a little bit of your backstory. Tell me about how you came up.
I started in Montreal, went there for film school at Concordia, and wasn't much of a class clown, but my films made people laugh, and I wasn't even sure at the time what I was doing. I was just given a few minutes to make a film, which back then it was on a Steenbeck. I actually cut and taped my films together, so I made them by hand from a Bolex, a 16 millimeter, and those films, which was, granted, I was in a good spot. They were destined to be good because it was me and 60 other first-year student films, all of which were more artistic and kind of self-discovery. There weren't really many people doing comedy, so I was a bit of a comic relief as far as when you're sitting through a marathon of 60 student films.
Right.
But that was the first time where I the last film I made, first year, I knew I was trying to be funny. And I was, again, taping it and cutting it together, trying to get the timing of the frames and shots and thinking, but having no idea. And then sitting in a room full of 200 people and that film doing really well and making people laugh gave me the first moment of confidence of okay, there is something I'm aware of in terms of judgment of what can be funny.
Sure. And so was that actually university, film school?
Yeah, that was the film production at Concordia.
Got it.
And so I made a couple films there that went really well, and I'm lazy, so I saw stand-up as an easier way to get jokes out and get that validation and laughter, as opposed to the year-long process it can take for a film to get through.
And so were you doing even before that? Were you doing like theater and anything as a younger kid, or was it just how did you discover that you wanted to do
it? I did do theater in school. I was lucky enough to have a really great theater program in our public school. Here in Toronto, I was in the beaches at Malvern. There's a guy, Mr. Lair, who was incredible, and he was a tyrant. He'd throw clipboards, make football players cry, and turn them into good actors. It was almost like a real army way of he'd break you down and then build you back up into a musical theater performer.
Super comforting as an 8-year-old, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, this was high school. Yeah. But so that was, I always loved that. I think I like live performance a lot more than film or TV. I just don't know where to put my eyes. I have no idea where to look or how to stand.
Yeah.
So that's but that's I do like being on stage, and so I think that's what even kind of led me back to doing stand-up in Montreal.
Got it.
And I was fortunate. It was a very good time to start stand-up in that city. The now defunct Comedy Works was a historic room that had any comic you can think of had been through there during Just for Laughs or otherwise. And my class of comedy was this kind of quote-unquote school.
Right.
My contemporaries were Deanne Smith, who's just released a Netflix special out. John Hastings, who's also doing quite well. Steve Patterson, who's the host of The Debaters. Rebecca Kohler, who's writing in LA. David Acker, who now runs the Comedy Nest, but is a hilarious comic in his own right. Heidi Foss, if you're more of a comedy addict, might know who she is.
I don't know that name.
She's a one-liner, incredibly dry, hilarious writer and stand-up. But yeah, the list goes on. It was a really cool kind of team. Tim Rabnett, who's a great Toronto comic. So the people who were just ahead of us and the kind of people that were starting around the same time, it was a good time.
Yeah. And while you were in school, had you started performing then?
No, I started pretty much my last year of university, like my fourth year. I'd done most of my credits, so I only had like 2 or 3 English classes, and that I did it around then. So I started dabbling kind of my last year of university.
Got it.
Which the Comedy Works was down the block for years, but I just didn't notice it until I started doing like comedy films, and that was the main thing. Is there's a comic named Derek Langvinus who now lives in Chicago. By the way, in interviews, I just usually like to talk about other people. It's a way of deflecting from having to talk about myself at all.
I see it. We'll get back.
But I watched him. He played a role in my last film, which was called One Hot Rotting Zombie Love Song, which was a zombie love story decade before Warm Bodies, or a few years before Shaun of the Dead. But he was a great comic, and I worked with him, and that kind of got me into the club to check things out, and then write notes for months, and then finally get on stage and
got it. And what would you say is is it stand up or is it film? Like, what's your stronger passion?
I think I might be better at writing, but I prefer stand up.
Sure.
So I've been doing that more consistently for about 17 years now. But the writing, when I do put pen to paper and actually sit down, I think I can write better than I can perform. And I do like writing for other people. So I'd say moving forward, and one thing that would help even with social media, especially Twitter, which I'm probably the worst at. I'd say the best at Instagram because it's easy and full of pictures. And then Facebook, just because you get more impressions and people engage with it more. And then Twitter's the one where you have to be really smart and diligent. So so I'm not as good at that. But is writing. I think my next big goal is I do want to be like a staff writer in a room, and I've made some steps towards that the last few years, and it's been promising. Nice. I have worked on some rooms, been in some even some just early like kind of pitch or brainstorming rooms for TV, and I'm currently in development of my own animated series with Big Jump, who has worked on F is for Family and Ugly Americans, and they're based out of Ottawa and done a lot of really great work, and this is like their first in-house adult animation that they're trying to make with me.
Nice. It seems like you dabble in a lot of different stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have I also got a Master of Teaching in 2016 because I was a camp counselor for years and always felt I guess I have a bit of a, I don't know, I'm pretty immature, so I speak kids' language, and so I got that, and the placements were fine. But yeah, I do dabble. I do start things and stop them, but always I still take what I've learned from that and usually try to apply it to stand-up or writing or everything. That's
the key. I think I'm the same way in a lot of ways. I like starting a lot of little projects and then seeing like within 2 months what do I still care about. I know it drives my operation team fucking mental. Because they're like, oh, we're starting this. Oh, we're doing this now. And they're like, like infrastructure and figuring out how to actually put it all together. And like, hey, go. Like, just keep doing.
Ooh, but how do you get those people? I want them.
That's a great question. Finding people is hard.
Yeah.
It's really fucking hard.
Yeah.
I would say I just brought on a guy part-time actually to help me do my ads. So like for my clients, we run ads for a lot of different clients, and I was like the majority person that was taking care of all of it, which is a little overwhelming, being that I'm doing this and running a business, like I'm running a lot of different things. So for me to be in those accounts every day was a bit challenging. And I interviewed a lot of people. I interviewed students. I interviewed like more established people, and the guy that I brought on, I sat down and he told me a little like his kind of like last 12 months and like what he did, and I was like, fuck, that was fucking me 5 years ago. That's the guy.
Okay. Yeah
Finding
yourself a few years earlier is probably a good person to get a hold of, because...
And it depends on the department, right?
Yeah.
So for the creative making ad stuff, absolutely. For the organizational and operational shit, no, because I write like a 6-year-old and I hate answering emails. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really work. So that's completely different. But yeah, for certain functions, that's how I've run sales teams for different companies and stuff, and that's pretty much always how I hire, is like somebody that feels like it was like me, but it just needs a little, like that little 10% unlock, and then it'll kind of go from there. Yeah, but yeah, operations is a different thing. Like when I brought on my operations manager, I had just a bunch of pending invoices that I had sent out once and completely forgot about. And she's like, you can just like collect money that people owe you. I'm like, oh yeah, can you do that? Like horrible at like organization. So yeah, it's good to find somebody to take over that if you're really bad at it.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, but no, I do like it because I mean, yeah, especially if you've got the peace of mind of like, I'm gonna do this till I don't like it anymore. I'll take the learnings back, and then I'll apply it to other shit. I find, you know, the reason why I'm good at marketing is because I've run a lot of different little companies and I've been different positions in a bunch of different companies, and like I see what's good about them, I see what's bad about them, I see their shortfalls, I see what they need. And until you hands-on experience what those things are, it's like when a student comes out of school and they've theoretically made a marketing plan for a business. It's usually something where like that company wouldn't have the time or the budget or the ability to execute this. So it's great in theory, but the practical is the more important piece. So I like dabbling in a lot of practical because then you get real answers to your questions.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. If you're coming from an educational background, there's not enough failure behind you, you know, to see, and successes certainly. Yeah. But
and so are you still doing that now?
The educational side of things. So when I got my degree, I then worked at a Morno Chappelle. It was like a 360 center through a friend, where they have occupational therapy and speech pathology, and I did like the summer camp there. So back to camp counseling, but with kids with significant needs. And I would like to go back to. I'm looking into being an educational assistant, which is more part-time anyway. At Beverly School. It's a specific school that I did a placement at, and those kids. It's a congregated school, so all the students there have multiple exceptionalities, whether it's, you know, autism and Down syndrome, or autism and behavioral disorders. And that was where I found I worked really well. Sure. Like it's a type of chaos that I, again, being slightly disorganized and stuff, that I actually operate really well within, as opposed to your standard 30 kids trying to teach them grade 4 math. I was just slowly dying inside. It's messed up. It is a scary look at like, I think I need to homeschool my kids. Yeah. You know, so I'm glad I did it. And I actually wrote a paper, my thesis, which you don't need to defend in a master as opposed to a master's. It's like in between the two, was on the comparison of the 98 and 2016 Ontario sex ed curriculum, and just kind of finding out. You know, I was always kind of curious as to, you know, there's obviously a lot of pushback about like, well, when's the right time to like teach kids about their own bodies, and, you know, how much is too much. And so that was kind of my big question. I was curious about that, and turns out overwhelming amount of evidence that the sooner you give kids the manual, instruction manual on their own body, the sooner that, you know, unwanted pregnancy, STIs, physical abuse, psychological, you know, mental, all that just falls off a cliff. Sure. And then there's like a couple, that was like stacks and stacks of peer-reviewed research through years and years of it across all like educational systems across the world. And then you had like 1 or 2 papers written by theologians who are like, yeah, but it's weird to tell your kid about it. So just tell them not to ever look at their bodies or have sex with anyone, and pray. And that was kind of the comparison. So that, you know, I value the time I spent to research that and really know that. Certainly something that becomes relevant again in our political climate today, and having that 16 document having been repealed and back to 98, so that with a hotline, so kids can rat on their teacher if they let them know that gay people exist. It's a great time to be alive.
So fucking backwards. I was just gonna get angry if we talk more about
Yeah,
this.
I know.
Let's move on to happier.
Let's go to social media. Yeah.
Cool. And so, and I wanted to ask, is that in Midtown, that school?
It's on Beverly and Baldwin, so like Chinatown. There's about 5 of them in Toronto that are considered.
I think my stepsister works at that place.
At Beverly? Yeah.
But she's in like Midtown, so I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah, there's a few. There's a Sunny, but yeah, Beverly's the one I know. Yeah, it's very rewarding. You get kids to learn how to say yes and no, and say I like you instead of I love you to like people they've just met. Like kind of really can seem simple, straightforward stuff, but can give them a lot more access to the world around them.
Nice, that's cool, man. And so from the comedy side, what are you doing the most right now? Are you still performing quite a bit?
Oh yeah. Most nights of the week. On average, I try to, if I'm doing it right, if I'm being good, then I'm on stage like 7 to 10 times a week.
That's crazy.
But that's just how you get good and better than other people.
Yeah, my only reference point to that is listening to Joe Rogan's podcast, and he like the volume that he goes on. It's like it's very similar. You just have to you really have to keep it fresh and keep honing the material and keep.
Yeah, it's like being it is the analogy of an athlete is quite poignant, I think, and it's just if you were to trying to train at a high level, whether it's track and field or javelin or whatever it is, if you were to take a few weeks off, that's going to show. Sure. Obviously your experience that you have is going to put you above a lot of other people, but if you're trying to train and get that edge a little bit better than others, you need to be it helps to be in fighting shape.
Yeah. How do you rate the scene in Toronto versus other places from your experience anyway?
I rate it pretty highly. I have had a chance to see most English scenes in the world, like all the major cities aside from Perth in Australia and London, a lot of the other, even Manchester and Glasgow and Edinburgh, which is not as much a comedy scene except for a huge festival that runs a month in August, which is like the largest. It's an arts festival, but it certainly has the largest kind of comedy festival within it. Right. Toronto is, for me, it's kind of, it would be that, or as far as stage time, as far as being able to get up as many times a night, which again is one of the more important things. Toronto's one of the best, top 5 in the world, maybe the top 4.
For the access to volume.
Access to volume.
Got it. Okay.
Quality of stages, what it vacillates.
Sure.
It's there's been some great rooms that have left, and some other good ones coming up. And a lot of that's personal because I've spent a lot of time investing in Toronto, so the access to stages is easier for me than if I were to start all over in New York or LA. But LA arguably doesn't have the stage time that Toronto does. It has more opportunities, certainly. But guys that I know who are grinding like 3 shows a night in Toronto are doing 3 shows a week in LA, and that's good. Like if you're doing 3 shows, there's just such a long lineup, and just not as many stages, and they're all you have to drive to all of them. Yeah. New York obviously kind of would be one of the best. You can get up at a good club once you're in with them 5 nights a week, or 5 shows a night. London, England would be up there as well. Chicago might be comparable, but as far as Canada, certainly, stage time is incredible. I'd say, there's other great scenes. Edmonton has actually surprisingly a good scene that's come up, but just for actual variety and number of stages, I don't like Toronto is one of the best. Yeah.
I just picture our audience is sucking.
Yeah, people are too cool for school here, for sure.
Very much so. I look at, I've gone to different sporting events at several different places, and I picture it as like going to watch a hockey game here compared to anywhere else. Like Winnipeg, Edmonton, Detroit. It's just everybody's so serious and so flat, and I wonder if that translated across.
There is a bit of an arms crossed, make me laugh.
Make me laugh, funny boy.
Yeah, there is a bit of that in Toronto. Yeah. I try to ignore it. It's because I really do. I love this city, but I don't want to be I love it in a way that I don't want it to be the cliche of like, oh, Toronto's the best. Like
Right.
I genuinely enjoy it. I grew up here,
Yeah.
spent 10 years in Montreal, and for a time was like, Montreal's like the best.
Right.
And I feel like Montreal, due to like the comedy scene and clubs closing and politically, seems to got more conservative, just in general, or Quebec in general, that it's been a little less my scene. And yeah, Toronto just kind of has most of the things that I want.
Sure.
Comedy stages, incredible food, whatever. I've been trying to work on this. It's not a bit. It's more of just the idea that some people complain. They'll go to say Toronto and say like Toronto sucks, but it's not like one specific place. It's so many different things. To say Toronto as a whole, there is no
Right.
Toronto. There's so many different communities and places you can draw a line and map out what you
Sure.
want. There's no instruction manual. You have to find it yourself, but it's all here. So whatever you want, you can make
find
of
it.
Yeah, the limits of Toronto are really your imagination and creativity. So
Sure.
I'm sorry to say, whoever's listening to this, who thinks Toronto sucks, unfortunately, it is.
You have no imagination.
It's
and
just
you suck.
yeah, it's just you. That's true of like any larger city, and
Sure.
yeah,
Fair enough.
I'm sure I got some people mad about that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
More clicks.
There you go.
Yeah. Click
And so let's kind of change directions a little bit in terms of what you're the most focused on now, in terms of like the goal of, I mean, right now it's effectively it's like you are the business,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And so what is that business's goals right now? Where are you trying to go? Is it kind of blowing up the comedy stuff? Is it trying to get a couple of the shows you're working on in front of some Netflix stuff? Like what are you the most focused on right now?
I'd say split between writing, so getting this show off the ground. Pitched a show 2 years ago they have like a pitch contest at Just for Laughs, and we won, which was just more of a conversation. The prize was like further development, which didn't mean much until we then spoke with them and got a development order from CBC to develop a web-based series.
Got it.
So like 3 11-minute shorts is what they wanted. And we just delivered on that. And then what happened is what happens in Canada, which is like, this is great. We can't afford it, so sell it in the US and we'll buy it in Canada.
Yeah.
Which is not as bad as it sounds. It's actually to be going to buyers with a Canadian, in the US, distributors with a Canadian buyer is not nothing, So we've got the development package, and we're fleshing it out to a half hour. And at the end of the month, we're going to E1, which distributes a lot for Netflix, and a few other options in the States. So that's steps towards a dream come true, which is having my own show. And also it's a different kind of validation than when you get on stage and you have a first impression based on the way you look and the way you sound and the way you're dressed and all of that. And we all know that who we are is a little bit different than what we might look or sound like.
Right.
So, getting the response even so far of the validation of something that just came out of my head, and also reflected in kitty, wants some food. Having something that's reflected on not only myself but even some really close friends and contributors, and having that it's just a totally different kind of validation based on nothing of the way I look or sound like.
Right. And so what's the premise of it? Like, what's it about?
Diversity League, it's called. Diversity League Social Justice Defenders. It's about the world's most politically, culturally, sexually diverse crime-fighting team in the universe. Okay. So it's basically every single archetype of arguments with the identity culture war that's happening online constantly now, which is relatively new, and taking that and turning them into archetypal heroes and villains, battling it out in a Marvel type universe.
Sure.
So villains like the cultural appropriator, which is a white guy with tentacle dreads that latch onto people and drain them of all their cultural identity. You've got the Gydra are the big bad, and they're like a cabal of men's rights activists that live in a giant underground network of their mother's basements, and they can disappear and reappear with e-vapor.
Right.
The Diversity League itself which is currently very small because it's all he can afford in terms of like art and characters. Is based on like loosely based kind of on some contributors and people who've helped develop and write on it. Courtney Gilmore, who is actually, if you haven't spoken to her yet, is personally I think the best person at social media I've ever seen. Cool. Just constantly like a positive, hilarious, sincere force online, and is always and is very like big on like always updating on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Like probably the most pleasant, joyful social media feeds to follow. Again, I told you this is what I'm going to fill my interview with, just talking about other people. But she's legit, and so she's like she's kind of the main, and she was born without hands and a right leg. And so there's a character based around her. She has the power of telekinesis, so she can move things with her mind. She doesn't need to use, you need to use hands for it. We've got another character. It's called Avery Brown, which is kind of a black bird woman who landed on Earth from another planet, loosely based on a joke that Aisha Brown, the Toronto comic and writer, wrote called Anxiety Hawk. So we kind of built that around her. And then there's Galen, like the white, possibly spectrum, straight white guy who is like an inventor and has built like this AI robot. So yeah, the first episode is basically follows him trying to prove himself to the other two members of Diversity League about why, as a straight white guy, he should even be a part of this Diversity League.
And where can people find that now, or is it not?
This is in development. Yeah.
Got it.
So I don't even know if I should be talking about it. I mean, there's been a couple press releases when we got the development order.
Right.
So yeah, I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, that's great.
I think it could create a writer's room that's unprecedented. You know, everyone's talking about Diversity League. Often it's a lot of lip service, but this show, it's built into the DNA. Like, we can't make this show without one of the most diverse writing and and voice staff ever. Yeah. Otherwise, it's just not going to fly. And that guarantees a certain number of writers, which is often what Canada lacks in comedy shows. And that's why we don't have the money to have a big staff of writers, and often diversity can be an issue too. So it just kind of, I'm excited that the DNA of that kind of is built in. Even if it were to get marketed, we make action figures. They'd have to be made relatively sustainably. They couldn't be made under oppressive conditions. Right. Even a cold-hearted capitalist would realize that just the way the show is and the kind of the heart of it, you couldn't. Right. That it would stop it before it starts if you try to do it legitimately.
I would imagine you could have an entire show of just the filming of writer room and that's got to be its own.
I'm sure CBC or other that would just jump at the chance to film that, which I'm apprehensive about too, because there is a level of like trying to I don't know if it's like fetishizing culture, but and CBC is not the only one to blame. In fact, they do a great job of giving you of showing you what Canada is, snapshots all over. I use it as an example, but really like any kind of news organization often like will jump at the chance to be like, oh, look at this culture for culture's sake. So but yeah, no, there could be an interesting show around it.
There was I watched, it was like maybe a month or two ago, and they did they've had a film crew go in and do a behind the scenes of an episode of South Park. I've seen it.
That's 6 days to air?
6 days to air.
Yeah.
That's what I was picturing with this.
For sure. I think, that would be a good angle to see, how it's made, and also how, a lot of jokes that they're going to be on particularly sensitive topics. Yeah. What is that's what I also would want to make fun of, but like, how do we, how many characters, because right now, the hope is that it would become a bigger show and you'd introduce more like a Marvel epic, and do our best to kind of represent some aspect of someone, so everyone can at some point, if the show were to run, see themselves on there. But how you go about that and how you decide and when to introduce and what joke is proper is so touchy. But it also could be funny too, of just the idea of, okay, we've got this grid, so we've got this person here, which is that, and then therefore it's okay. I think it's not that simple. Right. But I'd love to like make fun of it. You play with that.
Play with it.
Yeah. Before every writing room, we all put our forearms and wrap them like against each other and bask in the kaleidoscope of melanin counts on our skin. Like, I mean, there's so many places you could take it that are just hilarious and weird, but Toronto's one of the only places I think you can make a show like this.
Sure.
It's certainly within one of the few, just because there's enough funny people who have come from a different experience, all in one place. And there's not not tons of cities in the world that could do that. So
very cool.
So I'm very excited about that, and hopefully that'll get going soon and can update you on it. And blast it all over social media.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do it. And then, so in terms of your social, I mean, I know that we talked a little bit before, just about how it was a little bit of a pain point, and you're kind of dipping your toes and trying to get into it a little bit more. Yeah. So do you have any particular questions? I have a couple of like suggestions on kind of like how to start breaking into some of it. Yeah. Just as like making habits to kind of start executing. Mm-hmm. So I'm happy to share those. But yeah, if you have any particular questions, jump in.
So we spoke a few months ago, and I was like, oh, this is so exciting. I'll get to try to really hard, and then we could talk about it, see if it worked. And I think there was certainly a few weeks in between then and now where I probably didn't even post, but then had, like, say, the Winnipeg Comedy Festival, which is a good opportunity where I was able to post a lot. Yeah. And I made an effort. I was that guy. I was grabbing selfies, and it is all that stuff. And social media in general is something that I do feel like, I guess I'm just past that one generation. I feel like the old guy. Right. It's that one technology that I'm having trouble adopting. There's something inside me, some voice that feels like taking time out of a genuine moment to stop and capture it, and sometimes even kind of set it up or reset it. It feels so inauthentic and insincere that I have an aversion towards it. However, what I was able to do, because I know I can't, it's like dressing nice, which is honestly another issue I have. And Winnipeg was like a test.
Game Boy shirt though.
Well, because I've tried. I went and I bought this along with a bunch of other clothes before the Winnipeg Comedy Festival so that I would look nice on camera, because people care about that. Unfortunately, my mind is always set in like an apocalyptic like idea, which we might be close to in the next 20, 40 years, where it's like as soon as that climate reality becomes, something we can't ignore, that fashion and makeup and all that is going to go out the window. It's not going to matter. But what I've realized is, until that time, whether it be or 10 or 20 years, you might as well dress up and have fun. Yeah. So I'm working on that. But it's the same part of me that like has an aversion towards social media, where I feel like just stopping to take the photo or getting someone else to seems so disingenuous. However, in order to convince myself to do it, because I know, like clothing and social media, I can't ignore it. If I want people to come see what I do, if I think what I'm saying has any value, then I need people to come see it and listen to it on a consistent basis. Sure. And in order to do that, to not use social media at the stage that I'm at, as someone who's not really, not famous certainly, but has some people who see and enjoy it, to retain that audience, to have them not forget about me, which is very easy to do. Yep. After that night, they can be like, man, that comic, you hear it all the time, that comic was amazing. No idea what their name is, and you're gone.
Yeah. Do you ever, and this just popped into my head, at the end of your sets, do you ever say, follow me at?
No.
I would.
Okay.
Just because that's the opportunity, right? Especially if it's a new face. Yeah. And then you have them laughing. Just some way to be like, because then they could, in between sets, they're going to get on their phone right away anyway. Yeah. So, hey, do you want to like follow like the journey of whatever? Yes. Come follow me at there. I bet you'd pull a bunch just from that. And then they don't have to remember. They don't have to remember, because on the spot they're going to type it in, and then you'll feed them posts if they already follow you. Might be something to try.
Yeah, I think it's a good tactic. But yeah, so in order to convince myself that I'm not, whatever part of punk kid inside me is like, it's selling out or whatever, is I realize that I got plenty of people who aren't. They have regular jobs. They're friends of mine, friends and family, who post on Instagram way more than I do, or Facebook and Twitter. And then I look at that, and I'm happy to see their face. I'm happy to see updates in their life. I enjoy seeing certain people who I don't get to see very often, seeing what they're up to, whether it's their story or their photos. So the inverse is obviously true as well. That those people in my life, friends and family who don't get to see me as much, would probably like that too. Yeah. And it is a photo album of your life. That's pretty much what Instagram is. So I do see the value in that, and that's what's been able to convince me to at least start to make an effort.
Dabble. And so now we've mentally change the framework. And I mean, look, even if it wasn't in that light, and that's a good light to look at it. I was talking to an actress yesterday, and we have a couple of charities that are clients of ours, and it's the same thing for both of them. There's always a factor of like, how many followers do you have on Instagram? If you want to get a grant as a charity, they want to know how many followers do you have. Mm-hmm. If you're an actress and you want to go for a part, one thing they do is they check your following on Instagram and your engagement before they want to have you in. Because is your popularity over here going to help raise the profile of what we're doing there? Yeah. So it's an unfortunate. It just is what it is, man. It's everywhere now.
And it doesn't matter what you want to get a job writing. People get writing jobs from their Twitter account. Yeah. Because they already see how many people are following them and see if they've written anything funny.
But it's good that you're in the framework of like, I found my thought process on what is going to keep me motivated to do it. Yeah. Right? Because there's obviously an 80% of it that you're like, fuck this. I don't want to do it because of that. But if you found that 20% and that's good enough to talk yourself into it, then that's good enough.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Oh, I'm just a stubborn brat enough that I honestly just wouldn't. I need that. Yeah. Like I need to be motivated some way, or I won't do it otherwise.
Yeah. And so I think. So Twitter's like the thing I'm the worst at. I don't even actually have Twitter. Mm-hmm. What I have had success helping people do is your tweets factor into it maybe 5% of it. Mm-hmm. What you tweet is almost irrelevant.
Oh, I know. That's what I find frustrating about Twitter. Yeah. It's like I know I've written stuff. I've been writing long enough that's good, and it'll get like one tweet from another, like from another comic friend.
So the workaround for that is use that so this is my cheat for Twitter. So what I would do is either use a tool like Awario, which allows you to listen in on conversations online based on different things, so a hashtag or a keyword or whatever. So the real life example of how you would do that is the keyword would be hashtag stupid funny or some I don't know, whatever the thing is, and then it would pull up a stream of every instance of that. And what it would allow you to do is say, oh, could I make a joke on what that guy said? Or could I comment something that would be a funny comment towards that? So you're inserting your jokes via commenting on other people's stuff. So you can do that by a program like that. You can even search by hashtags on Twitter.
So you're saying by commenting on someone who's got a big following where there's a large conversation with tons of eyes and retweets.
It doesn't have to be, they don't have to be massive, but just bigger. And if it's a funny enough thing, and then it's catching the eyes of other people commenting, they could then like or follow you or find you from that. Mm-hmm. And then what you could do is take the screenshot of this is what they said, this was my joke in response. Mm-hmm. Take a screenshot of that, and that could be your tweet. Right. The picture of that with whatever, that could be your tweet instead of writing. I mean, and you should write unique stuff on there as well. Mm-hmm. But that's a good hack because then the person that you commented on sees it. If it's funny, they might retweet it. Mm-hmm. And if they retweet it and they have a big audience, then you start to siphon attention away then. Right? Yeah. Yeah. And so I would post every once in a while, but I would do almost like a comedy Q&A. Just follow conversations and then just insert funny shit into those conversations. Yeah.
Yeah, I never would have thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and because Twitter's right now in the state of Twitter in terms of the ability for your posts to get organic reach, it's not great. No. It's a really hard place to play. So if you're not tweeting 5 to 15 things a day, and some of the techniques that people use is they literally do the same tweet 10 times in a day. Just because at different points, different people could see it. Yeah. But then your feed is always a massive, that's kind of a shitty way to do it. But it is a way that could help grow. But I would rather, and it's a funnier exercise, and it's probably more fun for you, especially if you're reading different, and then someone says something that that you're oh, I have a good comeback for that, or the good the extension of that, and then you can siphon off their audience. Of people that found it funny that will come to you now because you wrote something that was funny, rather than you posting something and then trying to figure out where it could live.
Does anyone like this? Did anyone see it?
And even if you had if you don't have like 15, 20, 25, 40,000 followers now, it's really hard to build it up.
Yeah.
Just from posting on yours, it's really, really hard.
Yeah, my both Instagram and Twitter are like just hovering above 1,000, 11, 1,200, and you know, only a few hundred less that I follow.
Yeah.
One strategy I've seen Twitter-wise is I've seen people who just be huge follows. They don't care. Ratio be damned. You know, not trying to have a lower follow ratio. And it's quite effective. Like because they literally, even if it's the same, or they got 3,500 that they follow and 3,600 follow them, all that matters is that people are actually seeing that tweet, and they're writing jokes, and then they're getting, you know, hundreds of likes and and dozens of retweets, just because they're not holding on to this idea like that the ratio is that important.
Right.
Following thousands of people who then kind of follow them back in return and are getting those actual engagements. So
the one thing you want to steer clear of is the follow unfollow thing. So it's like when you follow someone, like a ratio of maybe like 40% of the time they'll follow you back. But then what some people do is then they unfollow them because they want to keep their ratio. So as long as you're not doing that, to me that's just like it's just a bit of a dick move.
And it's a hack. It doesn't.
It can work, but it's super short term. It's not like a good like long term strategy for it. I think putting out content and being funny and getting involved in interesting conversations will do you better than spending time following 100 people today and then unfollowing them tomorrow. Like the amount of just execution time that takes versus just putting out funny shit. In the long run, putting out more funny shit will be better time service than following and unfollowing.
And just holding on to that follow, like not caring about the ratio as long as people are interacting with you and you're, like you said, putting out stuff, and then, you know, what does the ratio even matter? Because ultimately a tweet that does well is what matters out of Twitter. The tweet that then carries off because you screenshot that, put it on Instagram or what have you, people see the likes and retweets. The ratio is not even in the photo, and ultimately, like, who cares?
Petty people pay attention to that. It's not. It doesn't have a positive or negative impact in any direction.
Right.
And most people, if they're following you because you're interesting or you're funny, they don't care what your ratio is. It's just a fussy, insecure thing. So I would say, who cares?
Cool. Yeah, no, I feel the same way. And it's kind of what I've been looking towards. Because actually, this is probably the biggest question with Instagram, is you can hire people to do a big following spree.
That actually hurts you.
For Instagram. Even if it's like following people who are interested in comedy, because I know there's ones where you can get like fake followers, which I'm not interested in because I want to engage with actual people, but there's the ones that'll like go after people who are seeking out comedy. Is that that all? That
can be effective. There's a couple things you want to be cognizant of with Instagram. So your engagement rate plays a role in the performance of your posts. What that means is if you've got 100 followers and on average you get 10 likes, your engagement rate is 10%. And if those 100 people are good, authentic followers, then that's great. That's an amazing ratio. Even 4 out of every 100, even 4 likes out of every 100 that's fine. You're in a good spot. If you go from that 100 to 1,000, because you've got all these people, hopefully it's the right people, and you're still getting the same amount of likes because it's not as relevant to them, and your engagement rate goes from 10% to 1%, then your ability for your posts to go out to see more people it lessens.
Okay.
So yes, if they're, and here's the thing, like how do you determine who's the right, like because they're potentially interested in comedy, what I would say is like if there's comedians or people that are similar to you that have a bigger following, engaging with their fans, because those fans would likely like your stuff because you're similar to that person. So as much as you want to be like, well, I'm unique and nobody else is like me, like there's somebody that's like you've got some similarities to. So for me, I look at people that have a marketing podcast or people that do the consulting, this type of thing that I do. And if they've got a bigger following than me, I'll go to their followers and I'll engage with their content, whether it's liking their pictures or following them potentially. So you could do it that way. But to just try and do it like en masse can be detrimental.
So I'm noticing the more I'm engaging more than I normally do, is I'm starting to get a lot of follows on Instagram from like companies, there might be real estate agents, who knows? Like I'm engaging more, so now something's happening. So they're affecting my percentage.
Yeah.
Because they're now following me, but they don't care about, they're a real estate company. They want me to follow them back, and they could give two shits about comedy.
Right.
So are they actually chipping away at my percentage right now?
They can be.
Should I block them?
No. Honestly, for like, until it's at scale.
Yeah.
Like when you're talking in the like 15 to 20,000, and then that amount of followers jumps up to 35 or 40,000, I'd be a little bit more worried about it. But no, and I'd say so people will come and go, and as you choose your content categories, which are basically like your topics that you're going to talk about on social. Once you determine that, you might find that all the followers that you have leave and the new ones come in because they didn't care. So a good example is my girlfriend Jenny does climbing, mental health, and just kind of fitness and wellness. Like that's the things she cares about the most in the world. And so, before she used to post all kinds of various pictures about different stuff, vacationing and this and that. And she still does, but now it's a lot more focused on climbing and mental health specific. And so her followers increased a bunch because a bunch of people liked the content she was putting out, and then she's like, these are the categories I want to talk about in the long run. She actually lost a huge chunk of her followers and then made them back with new followers that cared about that type of stuff, and those people are very heavily engaged now. So you may find that you'll get a bit of a dump off if you go in a direction with content, but you will, if you're consistent and you put out consistent stuff, you will fill it with people that like and care about that thing. Mm-hmm. It's always the case. But yeah, you'd probably see a dip, and then it kind of take back over. The one thing I'd say, like, to make it simpler for Instagram, because it's so open-ended, is like figure out 2 or 3 lanes to stay in regarding content categories. So like I'm gonna put out jokes or things that I find funny, or sets. So like that's one category, and then following my journey in my writing journey, like that might be the other thing. So that's like more behind the scenes stuff with stories of you doing it. But like keep most of your content to 3 categories, and if you frame it in the context of a category rather than like posting things on Instagram, you can kind of build a storyboard for what needs to go out. Mm-hmm. Right? So if you're like, so it's got to be behind, like, I want to talk about the writing project and like stuff I'm doing around writing. Okay, so what does that entail? That entails who am I with? Where are the places that I go to write? Like even if it's just like I'm at the coffee shop writing, it's like that's part of your story of you writing. Right. And then when you're in meetings or you're going to meetings to talk about that kind of stuff, or you're meeting with other writers about stuff, it's like that's a category, a thing to write about. Yeah. And then just follow like as much of the day in the life as you can around that category.
Yeah, I wonder if like the story of me writing is something I'd want to focus on more so than just the show itself.
I would. And the reason I suggest that is people want to build a relationship with you.
Right. So what am I doing day to day?
So as much as you can do of that, that will do better than everything else.
Especially, I guess, if the content is based on what I'm doing, then that's showing up every day for me to capture.
One thing that's really hard to wrap your head around, and I struggle with it all the time, is I have a shitload of experience in marketing, and I take for granted how much I know and how easy things come to me in the marketing context. So don't undervalue that. Take a huge step back and think about the people that you want to follow you. People that find you funny, people that might be inspired by what you're doing. The one crumb of information that's so far back in your brain because you're like, yeah, I learned that like when I was in school a million years ago and it's fucking irrelevant to me. It's like part of what I do now. You have to figure out how to unpack those little pieces because those little pieces are what people want to know.
Right.
Right? So taking a really big step back and like don't take for granted what you know, actually figure out a way to talk about those in more like granular ways. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so when you're thinking about, well, how do I put stuff out? Like you might talk about your process of writing or like, and literally you could have a video of like your camera facing down at a piece of paper and like, you like not necessarily your joke writing process, but like like, hey, here's how you ever like wanted to get into the mind of a comedian, so you'll like write down a sentence, and then I don't know, maybe like what your process is, like you mind map different words that rhyme with it, or you mind map other contradictory kind of concepts so you can play off of each other. But like even just watching that being drawn out is like a fascinating thing for people.
Yeah.
It's a real, and it's just like you're like, yeah, it's just like how I get my work done. Like even taking people behind the scenes of that a little bit, and so the nice thing with that style is you could have a camera coming in this way, or even just your cell phone on a little tripod facing you, and you're writing, and then it's like a 3-minute video that can go. It could be a YouTube video or whatever it could be. You could take little clips of it and use it for like Instagram stories. You could take a picture of it and have it as an Instagram post. So like little things like that, you can kind of not duplicate, but you can make into bigger,
chop it up into
more pieces. Yeah, and I think you've already got the brain for it because you're already doing that style of thing with the work you do.
Yeah,
making stories and cutting them into little pieces.
Yeah.
So just literally frame it like that, but then put it on Instagram.
Right.
So the exact same way you would come up with a story, and like you'd have little sound bites here and little pictures of stuff here and whatever, and then just put that on the internet.
Yeah.
Then you would have unlimited content all the time.
Right.
You wouldn't even have to think about it.
It's just what's happening.
Yeah, and people are nosy, man. They want to know like what's going on day to day, and now sometimes it's boring. Sometimes like I'm just on my couch with a laptop for the next 15 hours.
Yeah. I guess there is that. That's the other part I didn't talk about too, but just the level of exposure. Like I like getting on a stage, performing for people, and then leaving.
Yep.
And that's the time I share with them. There is an element of, which I mean, some people are able to do. Some people's art is able to overcome the need for such a high level of exposure on social media, because I guess there is a limit to the daily life that I want to share. Like I'm generally not someone who I know some people, they like, it's photos of them and their partner like all the time.
Sure.
And I could see like a few nice photos throughout the year, but like constantly just updating, photos of someone I'm in a relationship with.
Right.
It's not really, I don't want to give that to like fans of mine. I know people are nosy.
Fair.
I know people want that.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily want to give it to them.
Yeah, and you don't have to. Like, I think if you were to, so one thing you could do then, if you didn't want to go too far behind the scenes, is like just maximizing the stuff that you want to share.
Yeah.
Right. So like, what I'd recommend is figure out ways to get bulk content out of a day. So if it's like, you're like, hey, I'm going to go perform tonight and I'm going to have someone that I know that's going to take a bunch of pictures for me.
Which I've yet to really get good at. Handing people the phone and getting them to, I've done it a few times, but I've yet to make it like habit forming. Yeah.
And so what I would recommend is, okay, so I don't want everything shared, but what I could do is I could spend, 4 hours before the show, I could go to like a coffee shop and have someone come and take some photos and like do a little bit of behind the scenes of like writing, preparing, and then have them kind of follow you around for a couple hours, including the show, and take that 4 hours worth and get like 40 pictures and like 10 little videos. And then that's fucking 3 months worth of shit.
Right. Doing that, which is something I think of, probably an approach that I've been thinking about, which is, as you're saying, kind of the block. You spend an afternoon getting a bunch of content, or take photos throughout the day. But it's at the end of the day that I'll then curate that and release it in time. And
like, be awkward about it. Like bring all 4-color Game Boy shirts and have them take pictures of like in different outfits while you're doing it. Like when we have 30 minutes in between the next podcast, I'm literally gonna take like 4 or 5 different pictures with different shirts of me holding the microphone and stuff for behind the scenes. We're gonna take some stock photography. So like we're gonna do a whole bunch in between, just because like that, and then that's gonna give us the next 3 weeks worth of stuff in like 2 hours. Yeah. So kind of like figure out, and again, it literally like bring a change of clothes, and like you can be in the same place. Oh god. Like if I'm no, seriously, if you're out and about, if you post one in like now, and then in 60 days from now, it's like you're in the same place, but you're wearing a different shirt.
Yeah.
No one's ever gonna know.
And you just have these folders where you can then stuff you can draw from, and then it becomes more of a drag and drop situation as opposed to trying to create and craft this.
Yeah, if you try and
Post
execute the content and post it daily, you're never gonna fucking do it. It's just so hard.
Yeah, you gotta.
Yeah.
I understand. The bulk aspect of it.
Yeah, and even if it's just a matter of you go out and spend 2 days getting 50 pictures, go stand against this brick wall, then go get like 3 or 4 t-shirts, and then go to this other place and go to the coffee shop and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can do that over one day. Just have a photographer go and shoot. Because what most people do is they say, okay, we got to be in the studio space, and then there's going to be your one thing, and we want to get those prime 4 or 5 pictures. We want those perfect 4 pictures. My argument is spend the same amount of time and get 50 pictures that are like decent, and then you got a shitload of content to work with. You're so sneaky. Get out of here. Come on. Jesus. Yeah, and then that will kind of help alleviate some of the pressures of shit. I don't have a picture. What am I gonna like? How am I gonna post?
Which is the biggest engagement is a photo of yourself. That seems to do better than anything.
Yeah,
is a photo of you. No matter how beautiful the skyline is, people just don't care as much as like, I know that guy's face.
Yeah, so we've literally done them before where it's like I've got like 5 shirts and we'll run around like to like 7 different shooting locations, like 30 minutes at each location. Change. Feels goofy. You see it out on the street. You're like, what the fuck is that person doing? But like,
I'm puking a little in my mouth just thinking about
I get it, but it's worth it if you can get months and months and months of stuff in a day and then never worry about it again.
Yeah.
To like for that like 4 hours of like I look like that douchebag, it's fine. I would suck it up and do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was in Winnipeg, I was asking people for selfies, and what I guess surprised me is how everyone's cool with that. Like everyone, I mean, I guess if you're engaged and people enjoy hanging out with you, but asking for those, grabbing a lot of them I didn't even post. A lot of them were like, oh, these are people like incredible volunteers and staff of this festival who I didn't take enough shots of last year and who I just want to remember. Like I want to have that, some of it I post, some of it I just wanted to hang on to.
Yep.
But people are a lot more open to it than I'd imagine.
People like feeling important.
Yeah.
If you're taking the time to ask me for my time to take a photo, it's like there's a bit of flattery to it, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'm also pretty. I give everyone a first right of refusal. I let everybody know, like, you can take this down. Message me. I try not to put a photo up of anyone that where they don't look the greatest.
Sure.
Even if I look good in it and they don't, then I won't post it.
Got it. But yeah, and I think with Instagram, the things that'll help you improve are just like consistency of posting. Like making sure that at least 3 times a week, 4 times a week, there's something going up.
Okay, so not even once a day.
If you have the time and energy and capability, I would post 3 times a day.
Right. But
it's a stretch.
That's
really hard to do. So even if I would say that stories are really, really important.
That's what people see the most, and because not enough people do it, so
it's underutilized. So the thing about stories is that if you're consistent with posting, it has a tendency. So you have all the little people bubbles at the top. If you're more consistent, it tends to move your bubble closer to the front. It's also related to like how often that person watches. Like if they're always watching yours, then you're automatically right at the front. But the consistency of posting is what Instagram likes, feeding into what it likes. So
feed the beast.
Feed the beast, man. And so if you could do a story, like even if it's just like 3 total stories, a couple times a week, post 3 or 4 times a week, you'll see a steady level of growth just because of that. Because of nothing else, because of that.
Well, that's the next hurdle for me, and I might even genuinely take an on-camera class just to do it. But like I said before, like I'm comfortable on a live stage. I like engaging with real people. The camera lens like weirds me out. Again, I don't know where to look. I don't know how to sound. There's a part of that. So that's my next challenge is getting just really comfy, just talking to my phone for those stories, because that's fine. Like, I mean, if I want people to listen to what I'm saying on a stage, then I should be comfortable with starting to have that conversation, on Instagram.
Yeah. And you can always start out. So like people really like the just genuine, like, hey, like this is what I'm thinking about, or this is what's going on. And if you're like, not there yet, you could plan it as a show.
Yeah.
Make your Instagram story the show.
Yeah.
which is your off stage, right? You could do it that way for now until you've got the comfort level. So it could just be like, hey, like what kind of funny shit can I go out and capture shots of or whatever.
Sure.
And you can save that stuff too, right? So you can get if you see something funny happening on the street, like just get in the habit of filming and taking pictures of stuff.
Yeah.
So you've got a pool, right? If you're in that habit, then I don't have a good example because I'm not great from that thing, but you know what I mean? Like you see something funny happening and you're filming it and you can like give commentary on it, save it to your videos, and then you can post it 2 weeks later. It doesn't matter.
Well, come TIFF, this was a few years ago, and it was like a time where it's how I like to use social media. I was taking photos of just like mailboxes or street signs, but being like, oh, it's a Brad Pitt sighting, and then being like, no, actually, it's just a mailbox.
Right.
Oh my God, I can't. Angelina Jolie, there she is. Actually, it's just it's a pizza. Like just that kind of stuff is certainly like in my lane for what I could do during certain times. I mean, that could be a runner forever. It doesn't have to be during.
Well, I think there's like a bit of a creative unlock when you're thinking about it as like so your job, real job, is to make jokes for the stage and to make write content for the shows. And like those are the things you do. So I would almost like frame Instagram stories like that, but almost like in a Vine context, right? Because it's really short, it's really fast, it's really whatever. So it's kind of like testing that like skill set or however you want to consider it. But if you think about it as like part of your job, then it's easier to wrap your head around doing it more often. Yeah. If you're just like, no, I know I need to do this, then it's like that nagging. It's a chore. It's like doing the fucking dishes. I don't want to do the dishes. I'll do it eventually, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go out of my way to do it. But if you think about like the importance of it, and it feels like you understand the importance of it. That's why we're talking. Yeah. And so I think if you frame it like as part of my job, I have to write 10 jokes for my stand-up. I got to write this, and I got to film 2 stories for Instagram. Like, make it part of your task list for your business. Yeah. And then it'll over time, it will make it a lot easier to consume, easier to do. Right. Yeah. It's like killing people. The first one's tough, and then it gets easier. Except this time, it's killing my soul. Rest in peace, your soul. Yes. Who cares about a soul if I have followers? There was one more question, when it came to Instagram, as far as like spending money. So you want people the paid ads. From what I've heard, Instagram's the best spot for your money, like the Facebook. I mean, even just logically, if you're spending money on a little square ad and a big busy news feed with a bunch of other stuff, right? How could that be as effective as purchasing an entire square that fills up your whole phone? Yeah. As far as picking who and when and where, like when and how much is needed to promote, say, an album, or to try to get people to fill like 100-seater at a comedy bar. What would be your kind of advice in that area? So each objective comes with a bit of a different strategy. What I would say from the ticket standpoint, what I would do, to take one step back, Facebook and Instagram's ad platform is the same. So if you can do Facebook ads or Instagram ads all from the same spot. If you've ever seen it on your phone, it's like, hey, do you want to boost this post? You don't. Boosting a post is a fucking complete waste. Yeah. And most people have done it, and they go, I've run an ad. I'm like, that's not running an ad. That's just letting Facebook spend some money for you. It's a waste. Yeah. So I wrote a blog post, which I can send you. So you want to sign up for Facebook Business. So business.facebook.com. You can actually create an ad account, and that ad account will give you targeting capabilities that are far beyond when you boost a post. Yeah. And so what I would do is I would say, like, you can even use other comedians. You can use interests, like people that are interested in comedy, as like your targeting. So you can say like male or female from 25 to 40 who either like, it could be like who liked this movie or who follow this comedian or right, because I don't want comedians to see this ad, but I want everyone who's following those comedians to see the ad. Yes. So there's a really deep pool of interests that you can target. Yeah. I have an email a PDF of the whole list. It's 3 pages. It's massive.
Awesome.
It mostly makes people want to delete their Facebook when you realize how much information it has about you. It's pretty terrifying.
Oh no, I can only imagine. Yeah.
But so what I would do is find those kind of like find those kind of niche interests that you're like, ooh, somebody that likes this would like what I do, right? So that's how I would target it, and then I would spend like $20 to $50, like $5 to $10 a day for 5 days. You know what I mean? Like spend $50 on a post and just like gauge how it does and see how it goes. But like you can test a post between $20 and $50. That's all you need to like get a feel, get a sense of what it is.
About
the way that I would do it from a content standpoint is I would record a video, promo video. So like looking at your phone, hey guys, going to be at this place and da 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 da. Put over some text so that so some people go through their phone when they're on the bus and they can't hear it.
Yeah.
So make sure that the visuals will speak to what you need.
Mm-hmm.
Come see me, headlining this date, this show, and just have that text kind of splash into the video.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd do it as a 30-second video or so, for a couple reasons. When you run a picture as an ad versus a video as an ad, it will see less people. Videos will show to more people. The engagement rate will be lower, so the amount of people that like and comment and share and click it are going to be a little bit less, but you'll get more eyeballs.
Okay.
So running a video instead of a picture is my that's the first thing.
More eyeballs, less engagement.
Yeah, make it a video of you, or a video of you from before when you were on stage another time, and say, hey, I'm going to be at this bar this time.
Well, that would be my guess is I would just pick a joke that worked really well live that I have recorded, something I don't mind sharing that's not going to be in the new show. And I've seen a lot of ads now, or a lot of jokes, comics, when they post, they always put the captions underneath because people are on the bus.
Yeah.
But I figure I'd do something like that. Like a joke I feel really strong about. I mean, how better to show people what they're getting.
Yep.
Then follow that up with the text of like the show.
I like it conceptually, but how quick can you execute the joke?
You mean like in 30 second joke?
Like, can you do it? Yeah, can you do it in under 30? Because here's the problem: is that it's not intent based. This is a really important thing to know. So Facebook and Instagram, when you're advertising, you're not advertising to an intent based audience. And what that means is, if I go to Google and I'm looking for comedy shows in Toronto, I'm looking for that show and I have intent to go to it.
Yeah.
If I'm on Facebook and Instagram, you're just interrupting my feed.
Right.
I'm looking at shit, and then you're trying to stop me from what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I would just be cognizant of that psychology when you're producing the content for it.
Right.
You want to stop them, intrigue them, interest them, and then sell them on it. But again, and you would even adjust the content based on who you're targeting, right? So if you're targeting students, you could be like, oh, you're trying to take a break from your stupid class, like come see me perform. And
right.
You may develop content that's different based on that audience, but keeping in mind that trying to get somebody's attention when it's like new and you're interrupting them, think about that as you're thinking about how to produce the video for it.
Don't front load the sale part, which is my stand-up.
And you could
before getting their attention.
So the way I'm picturing it is like the video comes up, and then the first visual is like want to hear a joke or need a break from your boring life, want something funny. Like, oh, okay, yeah, that keeps me on it for more than the first 3 seconds. You got to keep them for the first 3 seconds. So like, this funny break brought to you by whatever. And so they see that and they're like, oh, it's going to be something funny. Okay, I'll watch for a sec. So you got to stop them with something at the front. And then maybe it is the joke. Hey, did you like this? I'm performing. Or it could just be, hey, did you like this? Like, come follow my page for more funny shit. You can also do it just to bring an audience.
Bring people in, yeah.
Yeah, and so you could test it with that, or you can, the same thing with
probably
tickets.
Probably both, yeah.
But yeah, just be cognizant of how you're getting the attention and the demands of that attention based on the fact that you're interrupting them rather than they're looking for it.
Right.
That's the big takeaway. And then you, as a creator of content already, will have no problem. Just go into it with that psychology and you'll figure out the content.
Right.
Yeah.
Unlock the puzzle, the unique puzzle.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what I would do. I'd find some targeting. Again, I'll send you the article on how to set it all up. I wrote like a long form blog post on how to do it.
Great.
And then just test it with $20. on 5 different posts and just see what happens. Get a feel for it. You might find that, oh, it seems like you might put the same piece of content with like one set of audience, like targeting with this interest, and then you might put out the same piece with a different interest and put them like $10 and $10 and see like, oh, this one might do better even with the same piece of content because this audience is more keen to that thing.
Right.
So there's a lot of testing, but I would say test with low budgets and just play and get a feel. To get good at it, it takes a while. It is a challenging platform, but just from the standpoint of like getting some awareness and getting some eyeballs and some interactions, you could definitely.
Or an awareness of actually who likes me. You know, who is it?
Yeah.
Having any idea of like who I'm drawing and what demographic they are couldn't hurt.
Yeah. And do you have a business Instagram?
I do.
Yeah, so you can see some insights in terms of like gender and age and geo.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
I've seen, because I can see how many people see a post versus how many people engage.
Yeah, so go to your, go to there. Go to,
Insights, if you go to like the photo and then view insights. So 237 people.
no, you should be able to see. Did they move where this is from? Oh, this is the page insights. So the views that you got on the particular day,
Yeah.
and then when people saw you the most, your reach and your impressions, and then audience.
Oh, like the type of people?
Cities, age, gender,
Oh, wow.
and then when you get the most followers and stuff. And just to frame this up for the podcast, because you obviously can't see what we're doing.
Yeah.
If you go into your profile, hit the burger menu at the top right and go into insights, and the tab on the far right is audience. You can get a good idea of who's following you and stuff like that.
Cities,
so that's cool.
countries, gender,
Yeah.
time of day. Okay,
So
cool.
at least gives you that.
All right.
So cool. Well, I think that's probably a lot to digest.
It is. So much homework.
So, but yeah, I think implementing those things will at least get you the taste of why you should and see a bit of a difference in it and see some more intense growth.
Yeah.
Because I do think, and I think you agree, that having that presence and having the followers, especially if they're the right followers, if it's a real audience, people that care about what you're doing, that will turn into stuff for you. People will, because here's the thing, right? The cost of getting someone's attention for the first time is a nightmare. I had a photo shoot and I did a post and I tried these hashtags and then they found me on Discovery and then great. That like one follow costs you like a lot. But once you have them, you can continue to communicate with them over and over and over again. So having them is important because then you own the conversation. You don't have to fight to get them back, to get them around again.
Yeah.
So one thing, and we can talk maybe like 6 months from now or some period again, we can do this again. But I think as you start to build that, I would start to think about how do I build that list of people that really care. How do I start building like an email list so I have a direct line of communication with them? So when I have a show coming up, I can email and be like, yo, I've got this show. Who wants tickets? Because that is the ultimate.
The email list.
And because here's the thing, right? Facebook's organic reach is going to shit.
Yeah.
Everyone's complaining about it, but like at one point it was incredible. Like you would post and everyone would see it and you'd get a ton of engagement and it was magic. But then it started to go away. And now they're like, cool, you want your followers to see shit? Buy ads and target your followers. And then they'll see it. And you're like, damn it.
Yeah.
So you'd be at the mercy of whatever Instagram's going to do, whatever Twitter's going to do. And so I would figure out if there's a way to start, and there is, but how to start siphoning those into a collection of email.
A direct line.
So that and so you can incentivize people by giving them unique content, or it could just be like, hey, I'd love a means of communication with you to go forward. If you'd like to join up, I'll send you some funny shit every month, or maybe you record an exclusive YouTube video for them with some funny jokes. To keep them interested. But then if you can build that, then you have that direct line of communication. You're not at the mercy of whatever the platforms are doing. Then when your show's coming up, you've got 1,000 people that you can email being like, hey, here's the link to the tickets, and it makes life a little bit easier. So
yeah, well, that's
something to think about.
The ultimate goal for me isn't even that big. I'm not really interested in too much outside of attention.
Yeah.
But to be able to, if I can get 80 to 100 people to fill black box theater in most cities in the world.
Yeah.
You know, through because of social media and connecting with them. I mean, that would be great.
Yeah.
That's what I honestly kind of heading towards. I don't have. I know you're supposed to reach for the stars, but I genuinely don't have specific aspirations towards worldwide.
And that's fine.
Global.
Practical goals are way easier to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, some people really want it. Some people really want that attention, and that's, you know, Twitter is good for that too. Like that desire for attention. Like I want to do good work and I want people to listen, but I don't care that much about how they, about how many feel. So there's the balance there. But to get to where I want, I know I'm going to need social media in order to, whether it's an email list or whatnot, have just a few people, maybe every 2 years, come see my new, my new hour. In most cities. Yeah.
Well, I think what we talked about will start getting you on track with that kind of thing. But the biggest takeaways are like bulk make content, as much as it makes you throw up in your mouth, suck it up and do it. And then the other thing is just make it part of your job to do those, to take the actions on there. And you'll see meaningful growth just with those things alone.
Cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me and looking at my Instagram over the course of a few months. If you could only imagine, you're just like, what is this guy thinking?
I've seen worse, don't worry.
Oh, yeah, glad to hear it.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.